Roughly 4 years ago, I did a review of Operius as part of the 2021 Opera GX Game Jam competition. The objective of this jam was to make a game that could be playable offline on Opera GX, similar to Google's Dino Run game and Microsoft Edge Surf's Up game. It's gotta be good, but not so good that you actually turn off your internet connection. Remember, big tech needs that personal info. So what did I think of this game all those years ago?
So overall, this is an amazing little addictive tube shooter, and I really hope Moors wins that contest.
Oh god, I look and sound terrible. Remember when I used to make videos on my phone? Yeah, good times. Anyway, the good news is that not only did Operius win, but this game was, and still is, featured as the official offline playable game for Opera GX, with about 4 million people playing it. Now, 4 years later, the deluxe version of the game is finally out, and I wanted to briefly talk about what makes this version so great. For a bit of context, the creator of this game is Moors. When he's not busy spouting out bad gaming takes to incite my rage, you'll probably recognize him from uber popular games like Super Mario Flashback, Mario 64 Plus, and there's other plethora of really cool original games that I've attempted to speedrun in the past. Moors went on to start Distant Illusions, which consists of him and Cat, who make quite a dynamic duo. For those of you new here, Operius is a tube shooter similar to the likes of Tempest and Gryas, where you travel down a tube-like path and have full 360-degree movement around the screen while shooting at enemies. There are other games you could compare it to, but that would be doing it a disservice because Operius genuinely stands on its own. Now, believe it or not, this game does have a story. In the original, it was just a few sentences describing how all the computers on Earth lost connection to the internet due to a UFO, and your goal is to cause a lot of damage or bring everyone back online. Very fitting for an offline game jam. However, in the DX version, we get pretty much the same story, but with added details like the ship we pilot being called Operius, and some decent flavor text to expand upon the setting. Gameplay has you flying down an assortment of tunnels at high speeds, flying through rings, and procedurally upgrading your ship in an attempt to take out as many enemies as possible. You start with a standard shot, but over time it will upgrade to a 3-way, then a full-on hyper-fast double shot that can shred through anything. In standard gameplay, however, if you miss a ring, your ship goes down a power level, so the incentive is to power up as fast as possible, and the 4th ring, you can move on to the next sector. Another thing I appreciate is that not all the enemies are just generic polygons you blow up. Personally, I find that enemy AI in any type of shooter or shmup is vital to making a game have its variety. But you get these guys that kind of float around and try to bombard you. Then you have these spiral guys that are quite difficult to shoot at and hard to avoid if you rotate the wrong way. Top that off with these Space Invader looking guys, a healthy dose of whatever this is, and you have a recipe for a solid arcade game. Now, while the game may visually look the same as the original, there are quite a lot of changes I didn't expect. First up, we have a ton of really cool themes you unlock over time, and this applies to the stages and the ship. Personally, I'm quite fond of Puck from the game he was featured in, and the PNG ship that was used in the original version of Operius. Classic mode is a pretty straightforward level-by-level structure where you collect all 4 rings in a given sector, and then you can advance to the next stage. Every once in a while you'll encounter some bosses that you have to whittle down while simultaneously collecting the upgrade rings. It's a slight learning curve, but if you're paying attention to the bullet patterns, it's not that bad. Not to mention, you usually get rewarded with some power-ups afterwards. Endless mode is what you expect. However, instead of advancing to the next stage after collecting the 4th ring, you keep your weapon and keep going with every subsequent ring being worth extra points. Switcher mode is a new unique mode where every time you shoot, you start to rotate in the opposite direction, which leads to some very interesting situations where you have to balance aiming for mobility. Survival mode is probably one of my favorite modes, where instead of being a shooter, your only goal is to survive as long as possible while flying down the tube at incredibly ludicrous speeds. It gets me in that zen-like state where it's all about quick reflexes and a lot of focus. Honestly, I'm a little disappointed that this gameplay style didn't get a full mode like how Classic and Switcher does, but other than that, I'm pretty happy with it. Multiplayer is a blast to play, and I want to thank Moors for taking the time to help me gather some footage. If a developer's game has multiplayer, it's a bit of an unwritten rule for me that I have to play it with them. Sadly, it's limited to only local play, so if you want to play with someone, I would suggest using Steam SharePlay or using Parsec, if it wasn't for the fact that this guy forgot to enable it. The best part about multiplayer though is that while it can make some stages easier, it can also disorient you very fast. But Moors said the camera flip will be addressed very soon, so I'm not worried about that. If you do get this game, just please be noted that Steam SharePlay is not natively supported for this game, and that it may be a little janky here and there. Also, Moors does plan to disable it, so if you are getting the game, I would highly suggest that you maybe go annoy Moors and say, hey, keep it in. I know it's a little buggy, but I think it's acceptable. So with everything I love about this game, I'd say I have very few complaints overall. Some of these could be chalked up to a skill issue, but I'll bring up a few brief problems I've ran into. In a lot of stages, especially in the switcher mode, there are situations where a ring spawns too close to a wall and it's impossible to collect it, forcing you to die or level down your shot. Now normally this isn't too much of a problem, but if you're going for achievements where you can't miss anything, it's a bit frustrating to be put in a lose-lose situation regardless of your skill level. Other than that, this is an incredibly solid game at a good price, and I'm happy I can not only cover this game at its best, but also see how far Moors has come and I've come in terms of video editing and presentation. I don't recommend this, but if you're curious to see how basic my old videos were, I'll leave a link to my original review of Operius below. Finally, I'd like to thank my Kofi supporters for helping back these videos, and you for watching. I know my videos have been very scarce these days, but that's because I got some big projects in the works. So I've been experimenting with doing some shorter indie reviews that can still fill the gaps, but don't compromise with the quality I want to put out here. So, see y'all later, and remember, stay foxy.
Isn't this game just Polybius?
No!